Hi, Mike Amundsen here with Design and Build Great Web APIs, and in this screencast I want to talk about modifying your existing APIs, or the way I like to say it, avoiding versioning hell. So first of all, this is me. You can find me on LinkedIn and GitHub and Twitter and YouTube. I'd love to hear from you and hear what you're working on. What I'm going to show you is something that comes from my book, Design and Build Great Web APIs. You can pick that up in lots of locations. I just want to give you a heads up. This material is also in the book. I spent a whole chapter on modifying APIs. We're just going to touch on this a little bit. There's some basic principles about once you've released an API and you want to make changes. People are going to ask for new features, changes in existing features, new actions, new data points. There's a real simple set of rules. You can follow your update principles. You can make your designs and your tests and your releases all work in concert. First of all, your job is to do no harm. You can't break anybody. Any changes you make can't break existing APIs. Now, you may think that you can get away with it if it's a small group, but what if it's a big company? What if it's a global company? What if it's an open API and it's being used by people you've never met? You can't break them. If you're going to have to break something, you've got to fork it, and that means you're going to release 2 APIs and maintain 2 APIs, or 3, or 4, or 5, or whatever it takes. Also, it's really important to just say no. Sometimes people want a feature that you just don't want to support. It doesn't fit your job, and it's not going to work. That's fine. Once you decide you're going to make changes, you need to follow the 3 rules of changing your API when it comes to design. You can't take anything away. You can't take away a URL. You can't take away a property. You can't take away a response or an action. You can't do it. You've already promised them it's going to be there. It's going to have to stay there. You can't redefine what's already there. If you said the second query argument was the number of users, you can't change it to the number of pages. It's got to stay the way it was. And then finally, any additions you make, any new fields, any new actions, any new steps have to be optional. You can't create new required fields or new required actions. That breaks people. So that's your set of design rules. Now, once you put something together, you're going to have to test it, just like you would test anything else. And the first rule is you've got to use all the existing tests from all the previous versions of the API. Don't rewrite the tests. Use the existing tests and then add your tests for the new features and the new functionality. So that's super important. Your test baggage is going to grow over time. Eventually, you're not going to like carrying that baggage around, and you'll design a new API. But until then, you've got to use all the existing tests, and you add new tests for each release. Finally, when it comes to release, it's more important to be able to reverse your API back to an old version than it is to a new version. Make sure that if you do an installation, you're going to be able to back it out. Now, this may seem easy, but it's going to be really complicated as soon as you think about stored data. If you start collecting new fields and you revert to an old version, what's going to happen? So you're going to have to deal with that. You have to plan with that up front. That's why document databases are so popular with APIs. You'll want to favor side-by-side releases. Don't replace the existing API. Release another API, the new, better customer API, the new, better search, and so on and so forth. And to help people migrate to that on their schedule, not on yours. Don't force everybody to turn on the new API by Friday. They may not like it. They may not want it. If you take away the old one, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Overwriting releases is generally a bad idea unless you're positive you don't break anybody, and you can do that. HTTP's done that, HTML's done that, TCP/IP has done that for more than 3 decades. You can do it too if you pay attention. Finally, at some point, you are going to want to shut down an API and get rid of it. There are a few things you've got to do to make sure that you do this responsibly. First, place all the code in the public domain. If you can, make sure everybody else can create their own version of that API so you're not leaving anybody in a lurch. Now, if it turns out that code's proprietary or you can't release it, you at least have to open source the interface. The interface was already open sourced anyway. Everybody else was already using it. So place that in GitHub, place in some definition files, whether it's async API or protobuf or OpenAPI, whatever. Make sure that interface is available. Allow people to recover their data. If you've been storing people's data, give them a chance to recover it. That usually means you write a utility or an export routine. Sometimes you can just instruct them that they need to take everything out of the system by a certain date. And then finally, mark all your existing API endpoints as 410 gone with a pointer to either the public domain code or the open source interface or the recoverable data or all 3. Don't just stop serving up those URLs. Keep all those URLs there with a 410 gone. And keep that forever. It's just a list of rewrite rules. You don't have to write any code. You just have to have something in a gateway that does all those things. So that wraps up modifying APIs. First, do no harm. Design no breaking changes. Make sure you use all the old tests. Favor side-by-side releases and do a responsible shutdown. And that's how you modify APIs properly. I hope this has given you some ideas, and I hope we'll get to see you again on another screencast. Watch the bug at the top. There's lots of things in this series. So long for now.